St. Nicholas was a real dude. He was born in Malta, which is now Turkey. He was a Christian bishop. He was actually brown, by the way. He was not white with blue eyes. He was a brown man. He was Turkish. And he did have a tradition of leaving presents for children in their socks as they hung to dry by the fireplace or in their shoes out front.
Well, hello. What's up, Memkin?
I apologize for being a year and a half late on my need for a haircut.
It's okay. You're here. So let's talk about your hair, what's working and what's not working.
Well, I still don't own any products. I don't own a hairdryer or curl iron or things like that. So I prefer a haircut that does what it does without too much manipulation. I am a recent curly-haired gal. I had hair like Marsha Brady my whole life. So it's been about 8 or 10 years. It's gotten pretty curly. So I'm still trying to figure out best cuts and products for that.
What is your current regimen as far as you get out of the shower, your hair is wet? What are you doing styling product wise or styling manipulations with your hair?
I feel bad telling hairdressers this. I don't shower. I take a bath every night. I wash my hair every other day and go to bed with wet hair. So the style is by my pillow. I do use the products that you had recommended a year and a half. I use those mousse and a gel, and those are very nice. They help give me lovely soft ringlets like you have there. And usually I struggle with it a little the first day after I wash it. It's got a little bit of this electricity through it. But day 2, it's beautiful. Nice, soft Veronica Lake curls.
Okay, so mousses are great. I'll tell you why I'm a big fan of mousse. Your hair expands, but when I actually hold it up, it is not as dense as it appears, right? So mousse is great for actually filling in. That actually does give it more substance, right? It does look like your hair in the back is a little bit more straight, and the top's a little bit curlier in the front. It's a little bit of a combination. So mousse also helps kind of create a unifying playing field. It takes the straighter hair and makes it a little bit, hold that curl, it takes the curl and definitely makes it more free. Yeah, mousse is awesome for that. You can go through and use gels. You can layer both on there.
Yeah, usually I'll do a mousse for the shape, right? The cold curl, and then like a gentle gel as like a hairspray basically to hold it in.
Okay, yeah. And, using hairspray in hair when it's wet or damp. Also, if you do use a dryer, if you did, I'm just saying, if you did, what it would do is it would help dry the hair faster if you were using a diffuser. So if you're using a hair dryer with a diffusing attachment, which I will use today because I'm not letting you leave here with wet hair, and I don't have 8 to 10 hours of you rolling around on a pillow sleeping to see how this looks.
And like every morning I look in the mirror, I'm like, good job, pillow, or it's ponytail day.
I once, when my hair was short, I went to sleep with the hair wet. Not wet. I went to sleep with product in my hair, and I woke up late, and I didn't have time to jump in the shower or anything like that. So I just went to the salon. I remember when I was getting ready, I looked in the mirror. And I go, my hair looks really cool.
Yeah, wow,
I'm like, I didn't want to jump in the shower, have the steam mess it up, right? Because I have curls, and I had flat iron it the night before. It looked really cool during that time, and that was in thick. So many clients throughout that day kept saying, "What did you do to your hair?" And I kept saying, well, I used a pillow.
Yeah.
And they're like, what?
Went to bed late, got up early, pillow did this.
And my hair looks cool. You have no product in your hair. This is how your hair is. You wear your hair off to the side all the time?
Yep, I have 2 parts. This is the predominant one.
What's the other one? Where is that one?
It's just a little over.
You know what? Let's do that one a little bit over, because when this part lays over, I want to make sure I have the more, not challenging part, but the part that's going to give me a better sense of where we need to go with it.
And you can see like this, it's like, well, we don't know where to go.
Because it was dried that way.
Yeah.
But that's fine for what I need.
So once a year, I go to this big fancy gala, tuxedos and gowns, and I do pull out the hot rollers.
Cool.
Which are great. I don't know why they went away.
They should have never gone away.
Yeah, they holding a crown and then folding, you just put them in and they do their thing.
I always have to explain to clients about hot rollers that it is really a round brush without the handle. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot easier to take your hair and roll it up, clip it, set it, and forget it. So much easier.
I do some pretty cool victory curls.
Perfect.
Once a year.
Once a year at the gal. All right. Cool.
You made me snort that.
I did?
Yeah.
Good. Awesome. Snorting and fluids coming out of the nose when drinking is always a good sign that we've hit some humor. I actually have made like sodas come out of somebody's nose laughing. And I learned through them that actually burns because of the carbonation.
Oh, you live, you learn.
Yeah, I had never experienced that, but I've definitely seen this, and I was like, oh, I got this burn. So I was like, well, okay, note to self, Sprite hurts. Here's what I was thinking about your length. I know it's been a while, but I'm looking at these ends where they get really wispy, and then I see where they start getting thick again.
Yeah, I think we did long layers. But
Yeah. So can we bring this up so it's the edges, the ends are all more unified and thick? And then you're cool with bringing this up so it gets a little bit more of height up through here.
I have no issues with long, short, whatever. You're the pro.
Stop being so difficult. And I'm kidding. Like, well, you're not difficult at all.
I don't love driving in Texas. I can tell you that's where I'm difficult.
Why do I like driving in Texas?
I feel as if I got my license here, it would be easier because some of the standards, like that little crazy U-turny thing that happens, where if you're in the far left lane, you get scorped into a U-turn.
Oh, and then you go around and... So when you're exiting off the highway...
Yeah, you can think you're turning left and you're like, nope, go around.
I love that feature.
Yeah, and yeah, I think if I knew about it, I would love it. But I mean, I got my license in Boston. I was in LA on and off for 30 years, and driving in Austin scares me more.
Walking around in Boston is confusing because, like,
Correct.
It's like somebody took an Etch-a-Sketch, they closed their eyes, they said, we will do the city planning, and then they said, and they're like, see that line? Like, yeah, the street's going to change names 3 times. Because I remember I was on something, I'm like, wait, my headphones had told me to stay on a street, and I was staying on that street, and then it goes, now you're, and I was like, wait, did I make a turn? I was so confused.
Or what it is was the pass between farm roads,
Yeah.
which was the exterior of the farm, right? You had a field and a home and a barn, and just the 4 sides around that were where the roads were, and then they just paved them. So there's no rhyme or reason to.
Then you go to New York, which I'd gone to before, which is a grid.
Yep.
And there's a really funny meme, and it shows like an overhead city of New York, and then it shows the overhead city of Boston. It's like New York because we care. It goes Boston because fuck off.
Exactly.
And I read it in my head with the accent.
Of Ben Affleck.
Yeah, exactly.
There's some experimental self-driving cars tootling around Austin right now. And they routinely just pull to the side of the road and put their blinkers on because they can't handle it. And I'm like, oh, I feel you, self-driving cars.
I see friends who are out late at night always showing them causing accidents and causing congestion, like they're going the opposite way of a one-way or something.
So they'll literally like pull over to the side of the road and get in the car fetal position. They're like, nope, can't. So they had 2 in downtown a couple of weeks ago that just kerfuffled everything. And then they had 10. And whoever decided they would send them out on a game day on UT's campus. Because then when things went wrong, it was a massive backup. But I'm like, oh, no, you all are mad at them? I get them. I empathize with those guys.
So, MK, you're here because you happen to be, in my understanding and in my eyes, the world's best expert on tech.
Aficionado. I will not say expert. I will say aficionado.
You can say aficionado. I'm going to say expert. I don't have anybody else who even is remotely close to this. So you are my expert. You're my go-to. You are my Wikipedia of Santa Claus. Old Saint Nick. Well, actually, I'm just curious. Do you have any knowledge of the evil Santa?
Krampus?
Yeah.
Oh, I do.
Oh, we got to talk about that too.
Get in the bag.
One of my friends was talking about how German heavy metal like Rammstein sounds much more scarier than regular heavy metal. I'm like, well, the language lends itself because it's a little bit more aggressive of language, but I like that language. I think it's a very, very confident language.
I'm doing whatever you tell me in German.
Absolutely. The German culture has a Santa devil is the best way I can describe it. And, here we're like, you do bad, you're getting coal. And it's like German's like, you do bad, I'm eating you.
Kidnapping you and eating you.
Yes, exactly. And so many people were like, that's not true. And then somebody goes, that's a lie. But there is a horror movie about this. Like, the horror movie got it from this, folklore.
100 years old folklore, yeah.
And there's a Krampus celebration where people are dressed up as Krampus roaming the streets in, December. I'm completely diverted the conversation.
It's very interconnected.
I can't wait. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to enjoy
I'm going to hear you out of my mouth.
Yeah, and so it's a good one. All right. So please, MK, tell me, along with everybody else out there, who are you and what makes you such the go-to person for this?
So I became an accidental aficionado of Santa and Santa traditions. So I had a long career at Walt Disney Imagineering in theme park design. Imagineering is the group at Disney that does theme parks, cruise ships, and resorts.
How long were you doing that?
I was there for about 27 years.
Pretty much, if you've been to Disneyland the last 15 years to these resorts, your fingerprints have been on their experiences.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to work at R&D. And so at one point in my career there, I had touched every single attraction and every single park in the world. Maybe just a tiny touch. Maybe I found this rare metal that looked great that you needed it to do, but I was able to go to every attraction and point at one thing my group had worked on. So
That's awesome.
yeah, and that was a real luxury to support the R&D group. And so I was always very connected to storytelling, pop culture, and trends, particularly family-based experiences and stories. And it's actually very hard to hire in themed entertainment. Because a lot of people love the product, but don't understand the skill set necessary to do it. And that's pretty common, I think, in a lot of the creative arts, animation, theater. So I used to tell folks, just because you like taking baths doesn't mean you can be a plumber. Right? Just because you love theme parks doesn't mean you have the requisite skill set. So Disney made me / let me teach. So for most of my 27 years at Disney, I did outreach and taught theme park entertainment. And we used to be able to say there's no such thing as a degree in theme park. There's now 7 that I know of, and there's a couple hundred majors, minors, focus areas, right? So it is becoming more of a burgeoning actual degree program.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, it's very cool because obviously somebody has to build it, and they can't get all the training on the job. It's essentially whatever is your skill set, architect, vehicle designer, and how do you tell a story with that? You know, themed entertainment differentiates itself from other forms of entertainment in that it's a physical space usually. It's a 3-dimensional space that you are in. It's a shared experience in these dimensional places. So I was teaching up at Carnegie Mellon. Disney Research had a lab on Carnegie Mellon's campus in Pittsburgh. So I was splitting my time at the Disney Research Lab and teaching at the Entertainment Technology Center. And we just had a brainstorming session because they were planning a TEDx in Pittsburgh, a TEDx conference. TEDx's are local versions of the TED Talks.
Okay.
And all those talks are online as well. So we're in a little conference room, and we got snacks and beverages. And I'm there to help them pick Pittsburgh speakers, right? Who might be an appropriate panel for, 2 days of programming here. And they said, okay, the theme is power. And I said, okay, power like fracking or power like Santa? And they're like, power like solar? What the heck are you talking about? And I said, oh, the difference between power versus influence. And, Santa is a great example of power or through influence, right? Like somebody like Alexander the Great, they take it by force, right? Their power is force. Rock and roll stars, if we emulate their clothes and their hair, and celebrities, that's influence, right? And Santa is influence.
We have influence.
Influencer. It's now a job.
Could we say that possibly Santa was one of the first influencers?
I think there might be people who put Jesus ahead. Early influencer. Somebody.
He was on the ground floor.
Yeah, somebody who we gave permission to influence us. He didn't demand it.
Okay.
Sometimes the church does demand it. Santa was somebody we changed our behavior and our habits and our traditions based upon the influence of the Santa story. For sure. For sure.
Okay, this is great. I'm already loving this.
So they're like, yeah, we're talking about power. It turns out the event happened in mid-November. This was June we were planning, but they're like, since it's close to Christmas, you're talking about Santa. So I put together an outline of the Santa tradition, Santa story, where it comes from, why it matters, why it's influential as a tradition. And tradition is a big pile of things, right? It's not just the one dude. And it was 6 hours. My outline was a 6-hour lecture, and I had 6 minutes. So there's a lot of editing went on there.
Would you have used ChatGPT to help you condense that at that time, looking back?
Yeah, I had to focus the theme.
Okay.
Yeah, so I really had to just pick one of the many.
I hear 6 hours, and I'm like, I would go to ChatGPT.
Yep.
Can you do this in 6 minutes?
What are the highlights do you think, ChatGPT? I used Prezi at the time. Prezi was brand new, which is a presentation format, very bouncy. It's supposed to simulate looking at a bunch of things on a desktop, or an architect's table.
Got it.
Very easy to make your audience nauseous if you're not careful. And so I rehearsed it at home, 6 minutes, boom. We get to the resort, the Nemacolin Resort, right outside Pittsburgh. Tested at 7 minutes at tech rehearsal. I already talk wicked fast and I couldn't get it. I'm like, all right. I'm like, let me delete some slides. I'll get this down to 6 minutes for tomorrow. And man, that guy was yanking people. The stage manager, he was out and he was yanking you off stage. So there was a little guy with an iPad who was, telling you 3, 2, 1, and he didn't flip up his iPad at all. Like he was entranced, apparently. Finished my 6 minutes. I turned to go off stage, and just as I turned to go off, the stage manager is stepping on. I'm like, and it. He goes, are you kidding? You're in 40 seconds over. I'm like, why didn't you stop me? And the AV guy, sitting back there running the console in his headphones, he says, oh, he tried to step out and stop you. And I stopped. I said, you can't stop her. She's talking about Santa. That was the whole point of the lecture. I'm like, please tell me the whole audience saw this behind me. They're like, nah, I'll happen by stage. So that was really fun. The vast majority of the research I'm doing, I'm sharing, is how it's ended up as a secular thing, right? It came from a lot of religious traditions and myths and the like, where it's ended up, particularly in America, as a secular experience. So that was its thing. That was in 2011. It had its little life. But 2.5 years ago, I started getting a lot of LinkedIns from Santas from all over the country wanting to link. You're not going to say no, right? Santa wants to link you in. You link him in. Somebody reached out. I call him now Santa 1.0. And he said, I bet you're wondering why all the Santas are linking in. I said, yes, sir, I am. He runs a group called the Worldwide Santa Network, and he runs a conference twice a year, the Worldwide Santa Summit. And he has sort of made himself the den mother of all Santas, right? There's no CEO of Santa, right? Like, these are all independent contractors, mostly later in life, who never thought they would be Santa. And he gives some really great training on how to do it well. What are the expectations? Where is there room for variety and where is there maybe not? But he's still not the boss of them.
Yeah.
But he's a very gracious man with his time and resources. And he said, we saw your lecture, your X years old lecture at this point. And he said, Santa's had crushing self-esteem issues.
What?
Yeah, they're like, literally, they don't think they can fill the boots. Somebody looked at them and said, you're old and have a beard, be Santa. And they're like, okay. I mean, it's a big deal, right, to presume to be that.
I wouldn't say it's even a big deal. I wouldn't even use the word deal. I would say there's such a responsibility.
Exactly. The onus on getting it right.
What would happen if you get it wrong?
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're dealing with adults and you get it wrong. You're shaping up. You're dealing with children.
Core memory. It's a core memory. So he said, when we saw your lecture, 6 minutes and 40 seconds of it, he said, these Santas suddenly began to understand why they matter, where they fit into American culture, into American families and traditions, and that they do matter. They are important. And so that was a nice little boost to their self-esteem. And he said, can you give me an hour and a half, 2-hour version of that? And I said, yes, I can. In fact, I already wrote that version.
So now you're adding. So you went from 6 hours to 6 minutes and 40 seconds, now to potentially up to 2 hours.
Yeah.
You're like, I have 4 extra hours.
Yeah, I mean, let's do a 2.0. I was a keynote speaker, still in COVID times, a little bit. That was 2022. And it was great, like, because they are all in, right? These gentlemen, 2 Mrs. Clauses and about 160 Santas. They want this information. They want to do their job well. They want to know where the history and traditions came from. And that was just super fun. And the gentleman after me was going to talk about hair, Santa hair. By the way, the secret is yak fur.
Okay.
Yak fur is beautiful and white, shiny, shiny blue white, holds a curl well, but they wanted more. They're like, well, you mentioned this thing. Can you talk about that? And I'm like, well, yeah, my time's running out. And they're like, no, we can learn about beard some other day. Stay. And so that extended from an hour and a half to 2 hours. And now I'm besties with all these Santas. And they needed it, right? So I was in April of 2022. And around June, Santa called me and he said, are you talking to the Santas? I said, yes, sir, I am. He says, yeah, they're telling me, because they'll ask questions about, is it okay to be a Hispanic Santa? And I'm like, absolutely, it's okay to be. So I'm just giving them tools and resources, a bit of history. And he says, like, this needs to be official. He says, I'm going to call you the official creative consultant to the Worldwide Santa Network. And I'm like, fine by me, make it so. So good time. So we have conversations on and off, talk about different sorts of topics about guest experience, how expectations have changed over time. What is a souvenir? Why does it matter? Is it important? Whether it's a candy cane or a picture, right? Good time. So then he calls again. We need to do something else because we need to lecture. And I'm like, okay, we'll just both keep our eyes open. So this conference was coming up last fall, a year ago, actually about a year ago this week in Las Vegas, the Themed Entertainment Association's annual Storytelling, Architecture, Technology, and Experience Conference. The bread and butter of my biz. And they put a call out that says, did anyone actually thrive in COVID? Because everything with live humans was canceled. Sports, parades, Broadway, theme parks, right? And I said, yeah, actually the Santas figured it out. A model that had been have a child sit on my lap, not at all COVID friendly. First things they did were to try and recreate that experience. There's a lot of Santas in plastic bubbles, and you would be on the outside. So they tried to recreate what had worked for them in the past. And they're like, no, that's not working. And so the Santas jumped both boots right into Zoom. They learned how to build 3D models of little like stables and toy shops and such. Macy's, which, has one of the most successful Santa operations, they have a length of stay for a guest is between 7 and 15 seconds. That's not a very rewarding experience. And most of the time you're looking at the back of your kid's head, as they walk to Santa. These Zoom sessions are, 15 to 30 minutes or longer. They can see the whole family. Everyone can see each other's faces. Santa has little information up front about you. What's your name and what are you interested in? And it's just a much richer experience. And the Santas, they're not being paid an hourly wage. They're charging per session. So not only did they survive COVID, they thrived and they're never going back. Sandra and I pitched this lecture for this conference. Killed it. I might say by far the most successful lecture because people just wanted to hear a good story, right? They wanted to hear that somebody was doing okay and that the fact that it was Santa doing okay, that was all right.
No one's going to have an issue with Santa because Santa is not a competition.
Yes.
Santa's an inspiration.
And Santa's an amalgamation. All of us can find something in the Santa story because he comes from dozens of different countries, dozens of different cultures, and it's easy for all of us to see a little bit of ourself and our history in him. He's just nice, right? We can't be mad at somebody who is nice if for no other reason than just to be nice. He doesn't want anything out of it.
And there's very few people in life that, as I use the expression, give palm down. As they're giving, they can't receive anything in return because their hand is not open to accept. Very, very, very few times do we ever encounter somebody who actually does give palm
anonymously, right? Like,
exactly.
There's a lot of TikTokers who are doing good right now, and I'm like, nope, the minute you videotape it and put it online, you stop doing this for altruistic reasons. So Americans especially, with so many immigrants coming from around the world with different traditions, cultural and religious, it just got thrown into the pot, the American melting pot, and all these lovely traditions sort of just merged together, including immigrants who go like, we always did this. No, you didn't. You just invented it now, and who cares? Because it's great. Same for Halloween. Halloween is from traditions from around the world. Jack-o'-lanterns were originally turnips from Ireland.
Because I understand there was this guy or something was named Jack, which is where the jack-o'-lantern comes from. And he was kind of stuck in this purgatory. He made a deal with the devil.
Don't do that, by the way.
He made a deal with the devil where he had captured the devil, I believe. And then once he had captured him, he made a deal that he had played all these tricks that he would not go to hell, but he also was not allowed to go into heaven because of the tricks he played. And he was stuck on earth.
And a pumpkin.
Exactly. Random stuff.
Yeah, we've integrated this all fairly seamlessly together, right? Like,
which made me think that Jack Skellington.
Oh, yeah.
Named because of the story. That's what I started thinking.
And also,
Tim Burton really did his research.
We like a nice alliteration, too. So, ancient Romans, like ancient Scandinavian countries, brought greenery indoors in the winter. It was an optimistic sign that spring might return. So your Yule logs and your fir trees and your garlands.
Wait, is there an actual log called Yule? Is it a particular tree or is it just any log?
It's any log. It's a chunk of a log that you bring in.
Why is it called the Yule?
Yule is the season. The Romans would put apples in their garland. Again, a fruit that did well over the summer. So they were sort of celebrating abundance still. Over the winter. And there's where ornaments came from.
I have apple ornaments in my Christmas tree when I decorate.
That's where those came from.
So that's a Roman thing.
But again, there's loads of cultures who used to decorate with fruit. There's lots of traditions that are intertwining. Through Middle East, ancient regions, candle in your window meant that guests were welcome. A single candle, yeah. And you'll see at holiday time, many homes have 3 candles, like a tall one in the middle and 2 shorties. Mm-hmm. That is a symbol that you are welcome. Innkeepers had it, but then any house, had it, and you were travelers were all welcome. And especially at Christmas time when, Mary and Joseph were looking for a place to bed, that symbol becomes a little stronger. Like, you can stay here, people. That evolved into Christmas lights on your tree. First fire, right? So dangerous. Like,
let's take a tree, just chop it down. We'll have it slowly die and turn into this nice crispy tinder with fire, with actual candle lights on it.
And tinsel used to be actual tin. It was fairly heavy.
I actually never even thought about tinsel being related to the material of tin.
Mm-hmm. Flat, hammered. So you made sure and took them all off the tree at the end of the season because you needed it. It laid beautifully flat, but it was supposed to be icicles to help recreate that. Thankfully, We moved to incandescent and now LED bulbs, so the fire tree issue is less.
Yeah, the LED thing's definitely lowers the temperature.
For sure. Like, it's not 100% safe, people. Romans who were phenomenally good at, you know that little party that you have every year? We're just going to call it Christmas now. Okay. Like, they were great at co-opting existing religious traditions, you know, solstice and things like that.
Yes.
And so there was already a winter festival that went around, and the Christians are like, hey, that's Christmas. And they said, okay. So that's where December 25th came from.
I believe St. Augustine had a lot to do with getting a lot of the, I actually don't know if this is specific. I just remember we're taking a philosophy college class, and they were talking about how St. Augustine had a lot to do with getting a lot of the theological questions, like if God is great, then how do we have bad things? But part of that was also helping I think it was the Roman emperor at that time, who had become Christian, do the switch over of these holidays that were pre-Christian, making them Christian holidays.
Yeah, integrating first,
It's
and then dominance second. I've got little fuzzy hairs.
it's probably better to use your finger because there's hair on the cape.
Oh yeah, I just probably added more. Saint Nicholas was a real dude. He was born in Malta, which is now Turkey. He was a Christian bishop. He was actually brown, by the way. He was not white with blue eyes. He was a brown man. He was Turkish. And he did have a tradition of leaving presents for children in their socks as they hung to dry by the fireplace or in their shoes out front, just to make sure that they were provided for a little bit. So when he passed away, that story sort of grew and morphed into 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. That was a storybook that was written a couple hundred years later. It was a department store had paid a gentleman to write the little storybook.
What did I think was Christian Anderson? It sounds like somebody I thought.
He's the Thumbelina, Little Mermaid.
Danish dude.
Saint Nick, who was a real person who evolved into Santa Claus, which is a different language for Saint Nick. Santa is saint. Coca-Cola in the 40s made him the big jolly grandfather we figure we know. So they made him. The storybook, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, he was a little bit of an imp, a little bit of an elf in kind of figure. Still had the blue, had the red coat and the white trim. But he wasn't the very jolly, gregarious guy. And in the 40s, Coca-Cola did a campaign with Santa Claus, and that is the Santa that most of the world knows now. Big, happy, grandfatherly, rosy cheeks, blue eyes.
What's the Claus mean? Or is it Claus or Klaus in its original form?
It was originally Klaus K, Klaus.
Would that be dramatic?
Yeah, it's German.
Okay. And is that just someone's last name? Or because my German is very bad, so I don't know if it actually means something.
I don't know. Let's Google it. Yeah, so St. Nicholas was the original intention. But when I...
All right, hang on. I got to do this.
To the Google. What?
To the Google.
Just say Claus.
What'd you say again?
That was French.
Oh, Klaus?
Was the original spelling.
Okay, I'm looking it up right now. It originated as a short form of Nicholas, a German form of the Greek given name Nicholas. So...
St. Nicholas became St. Claus, Santa Claus.
Santa. So Saint Nick. Again. Got it. Bingo.
Well, so that was one path, right? Long, windy path from secular to very non-secular. Odin of Marvel fame, right? He has a way more interesting story than Marvel has given us. So the god Odin is a traveler. And he travels with a horse with 8 legs. Sound familiar?
It does.
And he also was very interested in providing for children and gifting people. And so that tradition, which is far older than St. Nicholas, the ancient Nordic myths and folklore, it connects. And so it's an amalgamation of a lot of different belief systems and traditions, and they evolve over time, right? Like the elf on the shelf. Me and you didn't know him, right?
No.
He's new, and it'll continue to evolve, which is what is kind of fun. One of the things that's nice about my Santa lecture, we forgot the disclaimer. Don't play this if there's kids in the room.
If there are kids within earshot of where you are, this is probably the most dangerous, risque episode of Splitting Hairs I've ever filmed.
Heartbreaking.
It could literally ruin your child's lives. Mm-hmm. And you're going to want to listen to this because you're going to help enrich their childhood, I think. This most dangerous episode ever filmed. Mm-hmm. And it's not even actually that risky or that bad.
It's a core memory, perhaps.
Yeah, it's a distinguishing part of your life. So back to the Santa Claus.
You've got the Germanic traditions, you've got the Scandinavian traditions, but the continuous thread through them all is about kindness, and in particular, kindness to children. And one of the things that sort of the entire power versus influence lecture, the TED Talk that I did on Santa, was why this matters, right? Santa teaches children the difference between want versus need. It puts them in a position of power to be giving gifts, right? Picking what the gift is and who gets it, which they don't have that kind of power in real life. For many children, it's the first time they interact with technology, right? They may be tracking Santa over satellite. They're writing letters to Santa, so understanding how letter structures work. Dear Santa, thank you. Return address, like all of these things, it's a safe point of entry for a lot of these things.
We actually use the leverage of writing a letter to Santa as a reason for my son to want to get better and handwriting. He can write, but his whole struggle with school so far in first grade is, I can tell you what it is. Why do I need to write it? Which I get because I was that same mentality. And I'm like, well, how are you going to be able to write a letter to Santa? Next thing I know, his eyes got big, his jaw hit the floor, and now he wants to write so he can write clearly to tell Santa.
Yep. Influence. Santa had influence.
No, it's so awesome.
It's not a trivial thing for a child like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old to get want versus need. And Christmas helps think about that. And also the power that I have, like I can write a letter to Santa and then that letter goes somewhere far away and then that thing comes back. You know, and up until that point, my life was pretty much my house and my school, right? The fact that there's a bigger universe.
Yeah. North Pole.
Yeah. The original tracking Santa, NORAD did it with radar. You know, that was a complete accident. You know that story, right?
Oh, I know.
Oh my God, so delightful. So Iron Mountain that is a secret facility, and Sears Roebuck had published an ad that said, "Kids call Santa," and they posted their phone number. And they misprinted the number was Iron Mountain. It was a very secret Air Force military base. And it was an unpublished number.
What are the odds?
Right? It was 1 digit off. So
There's a guy at the tinfoil hat going like, that was all planned.
So the first few calls, they just very politely said, "I think you have the wrong number." And so they figured out, well, what the heck is going on? So third or fourth call or whatever, pretty early in the night, the guy in charge picks up the phone. And he's like, "Could you get your mother on the phone?" And so mom gets on the phone. He's like, "What is happening? Why is your kid making these?" She's like, "Oh, there's an ad." And he's like, "What? Stop the presses, people. We're playing. Children are going to be calling all night. We are not lying. We're telling them that we're NORAD. And we're tracking Santa," which is what they did, right? They ran a radar facility.
Yeah.
Santa didn't get to your neighborhood till midnight. So as tracking Santa, like, all right, it's 10 p.m. Santa's 2 hours away. And they'd be like, "Oh, he's over here." So it was an emergency solution to a surprise event. And then it just grew every year. That night, Sears like, "Sorry, our bad. It's all volunteers, right? Your tax dollars, except for that first night, never went to pay anyone's salary to answer the phone." And suddenly children know what radar is. That was not on their, it was not on their radar. Radar was not on their radar.
Yeah.
And Canadians got involved and they talked about, you know, when you cross the border, once GPS became a thing,
Yeah.
NORAD still runs a tracking program, but so too does Google Earth. There's 3 or 4 sites online you can track Santa in real time, and same thing. He's over your house at midnight.
My dad pulls that up as leverage for my boy.
Go to bed.
To bed. He's out here for Christmas. And my kid's like, if you don't go to sleep, he won't come into our house.
To fly by.
He'll just fly on by. And again, the look of terror and fright of big eyes, jaw on the floor yet again. And it works because of what? Power and influence.
And so my nephew bought into this hook, line, and sinker, and he would track it. And like when Santa was like 20 minutes away, half an hour, he'd go to sleep. He was tracking it from bed. I'm maybe the worst aunt ever who played into this. But then I somehow, in one of my greatest tricks as an aunt, I convinced him it wasn't Christmas Day until the sun came up. Because he wanted to be up at, 3, 4, 5 a.m. And I'm like, nobody wants that. And so, again, he says, "Well, how do we know what time this?" Well, you can Google it. So it's usually around 7:02, 7:05 a.m. in December. And so he knew that. And he would lie and he would stare at the clock. And the minute it went 7:02, he's like, "It's Christmas Day." I mean, it's still stupid o'clock in the morning, but it's not 5 a.m. And then these are traditions that people share. with their kids, and food is a big part of what a holiday or a tradition means to us. And then a lot of these rituals, decorating a tree, singing the songs, baking certain things, bringing certain things to other people. But at the end of the day, it's really about, it's easy to get caught up in the consumerism. Everyone's needy and greedy, and it's about money and consumerism. But dig it back, right? For a lot of folks, particularly children, it's not. It's about doing family things. It's about seeing lights and hearing music. And it's about gifts. It's about giving gifts and getting gifts.
Do you think that adults forget that this is really a holiday for children?
Yes. I mean, it's a holiday for everyone. Everybody likes being kind and having kindness done to them. But yes, they do sometimes forget that it started out for the kids.
I should probably ask the question better, which I'm glad you gave that as Christmas is for family. Santa is for the children.
Correct.
We have a rule in our family that we don't give any gifts to each other. All gifts are for the kids. So there's not I buy so many things for myself throughout the year, trying to buy me something for Christmas.
Yeah, you're good.
I don't need it more. My wife and I, we came to that agreement early on, and we told all the family, we said, if you want to get us a gift, please don't funnel it to the kids, because we don't need any.
Yeah, and my family, which is gigantic, we pull one name out of the hat, because especially as my siblings started having kids, you're like this is deplorable that they're getting 20 gifts from 20 aunts and uncles. That's no kid needs that much stuff. So
unless they're Legos.
Correct.
You can never have too many Legos.
This is true. I mean, they're never mad at books, I found out.
What?
That nobody's ever mad if you send their kid books.
Interesting.
Even if they're like, no, okay, we'll allow a storybook. But the kids love being in on it. They love pulling a name out of a hat. They love having a secret. They love doing a few chores to get some money to buy a gift that they chose. But for adults, there is still some magic in the idea that somebody thought about me. One of the nicest gifts I got, my niece, who was about 4 at the time, pulled my name out of the hat. And I had gone to visit them in Boston over the summer. And we were outside some sort of fancy little arts domestic store, and they had all kinds of kitchen timers, in the shapes of ladybugs and stuff. And I said, oh, that reminds me, I just accidentally threw away my timer. I was baking, and when I sweeped all the trash into the garbage, I accidentally sweeped in my timer. So she pulls my name out of the hat in December, and she goes, oh, remember, MK said she needed a timer. And my sister said, you don't think she's gotten one by now? And my niece is like, nope. And she was correct. So she did some chores, and she earned some bucks. She sent me a kitchen timer, Swedish fish, which is my favorite candy, and a cookbook of recipes she think I might like. So her mother went on the internet, and she would name the thing and upload, and they printed out. So I got a kindergartner cookbook, Swedish fish, and a timer. And I'm to this day, that might be the most thoughtful gift I ever got.
It was all things you like.
It was all things I like. It was things she thought about and prepared. It was a cooking timer, so she gave me a cookbook.
Yeah. It was all related. It's all things you needed.
Yep.
And wanted.
Correct. And she was just a kid at the time. And I do appreciate, though, simmer down, aunts and uncles. Look, I know you all want to buy the cute Gap overalls and whatever else for the new babies, but that's not a responsible use of anybody's time and money. So pull one out of the hat and off you go.
So I once heard that psychedelic mushrooms are a huge part of Santa Claus.
Yeah, there's ancient shamans also in the Nordic tradition.
Okay.
They were depicted as little people, smaller stature people with antlers on their heads. So here come the reindeers again. They're part of the story. Their hallucinogens were those red mushrooms with the white dots like you see in Mario Kart, which is a real mushroom. That powered them up, and that became part of the tradition of storytelling. So there's the red and the white color comes back in through that avenue. The antlers, magic reindeers, magic antlers comes in again through that. I don't know that a tradition of psychedelics has really ever stayed.
I don't remember where the psychedelic is, or maybe it was part of you took this and it made it more of a celebratory thing.
Certainly, all festivals involved it, but
especially during that time. That's
life expectancy was 24. right? Do what you want.
Do some mushrooms.
There is that gentleman, the antler wearing,
The Loki like.
a comic book just did a modern interpretation. So if you Google sexy Santa shaman, you'll see this guy, and he looks like Hugh Jackman. He is jacked, and he's got a reindeer over his shoulder. So he's got all the iconography, but he is not a little impish fellow. He is coming to kick ass and take names.
I feel like we need to see that movie.
Yeah, they haven't made a movie. It's a comic book, and all the art is spectacular. So Sexy Santa Shaman is coming is that particular comic book.
If you were to cast the lead in that movie, which actor would you cast as the sexy Santa shaman?
It might be Hugh Jackman.
It might be Hugh Jackman.
Right, because the depiction in the comic book is not a young, jolly guy. Like, this guy's seen stuff. He's been in the woods. He's working with reindeer and psychedelics, and he's flying around.
He's a little more seasoned.
He's correct. He's very seasoned.
We're not talking like a Ryan Gosling.
No, and also not like the guys like Sylvester Stallone and Schwarzenegger. They just scream a lot of violence to me, military-based violence. It could be Jason Statham. Jason Statham can pull it off, maybe.
I just think he's going to come up from behind you and just go or something. I don't know.
Hugh Jackman wouldn't do that.
I think Hugh Jackman's a nice guy. I ran into him.
And he wasn't mad, I bet, right? He ran into you?
No, I didn't physically run into him.
Yeah.
He was there at this resort with his wife at the time and their children, and people had come up to him wanting to get photos. And he was really polite, saying, "I'm with my family. I'm sorry. I don't. When I'm with my family, I'm a family man." And I thought that was so cool. They had a boundary. Whereas we were leaving, somebody in the group, we were leaving the pool at the resort, had dropped something. And so we were all waiting to go out, and I was stopped because they had to pick things up. And who was sitting right there to my right? Hugh Jackman.
Mr. Jack?
And we had been by the pool. We had seen each other the whole time. I didn't come up to him. And he just looked at me. He's like, "You have a good day." And I was like, "You too." It was like his way of saying, "Thanks for not bothering."
Yeah, I see that you saw me.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. Yeah.
Like I knew and he knew.
Mm-hmm.
He knew I knew who he was. And I was like, "I'm not going there." And I've always thought that he's probably one of those guys who's just really cool.
So there's a couple of great modern interpretations of the Santa story have come out recently.
Like Bad Santa.
Yeah, Bad Santa is one interpretation. By the way, I have a lovely, if I do say so myself, Santa tuxedo, red with white detailing tuxedo that I wear seasonally.
Do you wear this when you're doing your lectures on Santa?
I do, yeah.
Do you have antlers to go with it?
No, just a classy little suit.
I feel like I need a photo.
Yep, I can send you a photo. Great. And the lining is vintage ornaments. It's really lovely. And so I was just obsessed with my vintage ornaments. And so I would open up my jacket and be like, "You guys, look at the vintage ornaments." And I was somewhere where I had a drink or something in my right hand. And my friend came up and so it said, "Show them your ornaments." And so I opened the left side for the first time ever. It's a quote from Bad Santa. This tuxedo apparently is inspired by Bad Santa. And it says, "Merry Christmas, mother effer," spelled out. And my friend is like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh, Lord. But I can tell you, I haven't pulled that label out." I know it's there. I share it as need be.
This is like the right side is
Classy, qualitative, yeah.
maybe two.
Look at
the left side is water 2 bottles in, which would be very much a Bad Santa.
Right, yeah. It tracks with the Bad Santa.
Yeah.
I'm a super taster, smeller.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't like cigarettes, booze, seafood. Yeah.
Seafood.
I've been designated driver.
You're from Boston.
I worked on a log boat for a while, right? It smells. By the way, lobstering, hard work, great money. I am the designated driver for everyone. And so I'm the one who remembers everything after the fact. So it's even funnier that I'm the one who flipped open the jacket that said, "Merry Christmas, mother effer." Oops. There's a Netflix 2 Christmases ago did a really lovely retelling of the Santa story. It's called Claus, Klaus.
I've seen that.
It's super sweet.
Who's the guy? There's an actor in it, right?
Yeah, is it Ed Asner? Is it Ed Asner's? To the Googles. It's just they really do a great job of representing the Sami people, who are the traditional reindeer herders. The little girl.
Getting it.
Yeah, the little girl is Sami, Sami. Kristoff in Frozen represents the Sami people.
Okay.
Kurt Russell, that's a few years ago, did a live action Santa-ologist. Again, like really good. It's a different one. It's a different take. Yeah, Klaus from Netflix is animated. The Kurt Russell one is live action. Well, it's a different lens, right? But it still, I think, captures the Santa story. Another thing that I really adore and I try and hold up professionally myself is the idea of, like you had talked about altruistic giving, right? Like my hair, like palm is down. There's this famous scene in Miracle on 34th Street. I was going to say 42nd. That's Broadway. Miracle on 34th Street, where the woman is asking for a doll. The little child's asking for a doll, and Macy's doesn't have it. And Santa tells her caretaker, "Oh, Gimbals has it down the road." Yeah. Just to the adult, right? Not to the kid. And she's like, "What? Like, why would a Macy's Santa send me to another store? They must really care about their customers. Like Macy's cares that the customer gets what they want, no matter where they get it." And so obviously Macy's fires Santa immediately because how dare you send a customer to another store? But word got out that Macy's was the caring company and a big deal, and they had to fight to get Santa back. That's called the linked economy, which is I can't get you what you need, but I can help you get you what you need. And so I'm all for that. Any organization I join, I'm like, we have maybe the content for our members that we create is behind a paywall, right? You're going to be a member for that. But as a leader in an industry or organization, I think we owe it to each other just to share resources.
Yeah.
The linked economy, right? Like if you want information on what are the top 10 books, I'm not endorsing these books so much as saying, here's 10 books, go look at them. It may be what you want and what you don't want. But that's a good example of the way that you keep a customer for their life and that you keep your store open for X hundred years, Macy's, is that you give the customer what they want, not what you want.
Interesting.
And so I always will pull up that little clip if people ask, like, what is this linked economy? I'm like, Exhibit A. We all get why this is the right thing for Santa to do, right? Like, let's all be a little bit better about not thwarting someone else's success if it doesn't contribute to ours immediately.
Get back to Santa.
Well, and that's an easy point of view to take when your company's been around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. If you're super obsessed with this quarter and next quarter and next quarter, it's a little harder to think long-term like that. But if your business is return guests, like it's why the wedding industry is so famous for terrible customer service, because they presume you won't be back. One and done, they hope, right? And so they can treat you like crap. Other businesses that are vested in you being a long-time guest or customer, like spending money on human beings and these sort of intangible things is where you make your money in the long run.
So I'm going to put some glitter in here. I'm going to spray.
Yeah, beauty.
Put the mousse and get you going. Okay?
Yep. I should know that when I have like too many ponytail days in a row, that's when I call you. Not when I'm like, it's been like a year and a half. But also, people of the interwebs, I had the same hairdresser for over 30 years.
Okay.
She was my hairdresser when I was in grad school and couldn't afford anything. And spiral perms were still in style. And then I got a job, and then I became an executive, right? And so she was with me on that journey. And even though I relocated to Florida 3 times, Pennsylvania once, I was back at Disney in California enough. Like, she would open up at 6 a.m. before a flight for me to do my hair. She's the one who was like, whoa, your hair's getting curlies. So just the fact that I needed a new hairdresser, like, I literally didn't even know how to do that because I hadn't had a new hairdresser in years. So a good mutual friend of ours, Jay, who is with Disney on the West Coast in California, he put out a note and he says, hey, y'all, my good friend who was a hairstylist in California is now relocated to Austin. And FYI, he has a specialty in curly hair. And I'm like, oh, I have, and then getting more curly. Yeah. And so I reached out to you. And so there was like 2 sensitive things, right? Like, one is new hairdresser, and I feel bad that I left the woman I love for years, who's a dear friend too, right? But then also, like, I don't know how to manage curly hair. Yeah. And you, sir, such a delight on both fronts. Made me comfortable. You never judged me for sleeping with wet hair. You taught me a little bit about what sort of product and how to manage my curly hair. Because what my twin does is she tries to straighten it again, right? So she'll use a brush or something and straighten it, which makes it fuzzy. And then when her hair, at the end of the day, tries to be curly again, it's just fighting itself, right?
One of the reasons why curly hair gets frizzy is that it automatically starts at an area where it needs just more moisture. So leave-in conditioner is paramount to actually minimize that. So if there's anyone with curly hair, they say, what product should I use? The first thing I say is, you need to be using the leave-in conditioner, and you need to be using the right leave-in conditioner. Because if you have very thick hair, like the actual density is high and the strands are like medium to coarse, a cream-based leave-in conditioner is going to be like my go-to, right? But if you don't have that and you have like, medium density to fine density, I need a spray leave-in that's going to give you the same attributes that heavy cream leave-in is going to. When I say heavy, people think it's heavy, but it's not really that heavy. But on medium to finer hair densities and finer hair strands, the viscosity could be weighing it down. But if you don't add that component to the mix, the hair is always going to be frizzier. When I oversaturate my hair with leave-in conditioner, not conditioner, leave-in conditioner, I notice that my hair is smoother, softer, and bouncier, which it sounds counterintuitive to what you think it would do you. When there's a tree or a plant and everything's wilting, it's hanging down, it's thirsty, right? Well, hair, it gets frizzy. And when you add the water or leave in the moisture back in, it springs up. So your curls actually become bouncier.
So it was about a year ago this week, I did how the Santa said Christmas lecture.
Yeah.
It was at UNLV. They couldn't guarantee a steady Wi-Fi system because we were going to Zoom Santa in, right? Santa and I were co-giving the presentation. But because they couldn't guarantee consistent Wi-Fi, we had to pre-record his part, which was actually perfect because then I knew exactly what he was going to say and how long. And so I did like 22 minutes. He did like 10. I did a wrap up. And it was super fun, right? It worked really well. Great reception. Everyone's like, we didn't know what this was about. And it turned out it was enlightening. It was inspiring. A lot of the stuff that the Santas did, we can do, whether we're like a baseball team or whatnot. So we got really good feedback. So, X months later, Santa reaches out again and he goes, let's do another, we're a hit, right? Me and you, we're a hit. Let's do another thing.
We're a hit.
And I'm like,
we're taking this on the road.
And rather than write and present an original lecture and workshop, I said, why don't we just show the video of the lecture that we did, right? Because none of the Santas were in that audience. It was the entertainment industry executives and creatives. And I had forgotten, I had named names, right? Like Santa Greg, who was doing who taught himself at 75 how to model in 3D. The gentleman who's doing letters from Santas, and now it's online, and so you can personalize it with your kid's name. There are Santa AI chatbots, and one kid talked to Santa for 17 hours. And they found out he was in chemo. He was a kid in the hospital, and he was on his laptop talking to Santa for hours. That chatbot is only available during the holiday season. But there's a lot of industry.
It's only there during
the holiday season, yeah. Because really, that should be available all year long.
I was just saying, it'd be so great
or any character, right? We could have Spider-Man talk to me or somebody I look up to.
Another reason that AI is just good.
So these technologies that have been around really exploded during COVID lockdowns to allow people different forms of connectivity. Yeah. And so I'm like, Santa, you and I spent 2 months, and we put on this lecture, and the people we were talking about don't know that. And so the place where I had given the lecture had recorded it, and they gave me an advance copy of the recording. And we just played that back for the Santas. And they were crying because, they started this journey with me 2 years ago with self-esteem issues. And for me to not just say, oh, there's a guy doing, I said, oh, Santa Greg from Colorado, right? They're they're like, that's me. She said my name and people cheered for me. And I'm like, there's kind of an accident, right? I just always list the name of the person who's doing the thing. One of the gentlemen who had built his living room, the toy shop, and the stable, as he's walking through video was walking through his virtual stable. One of the reindeer's parts, and that is comic gold, right? And he's a little not sure about it because it's kind of crude, but to hear, 400 industry executives laugh hysterically, he's like, that's me, I did. Although I did, now I feel badly, I did twice refer to them as paunchy. I referred to Santas as paunchy.
What's that mean?
It means as a belly, paunchy belly. And one of the Santas is like, hey, and his wife happened to be one of the Mrs. Clauses, and she's like, stand up, stand sideways, and we'll decide. He's like, no, okay, I'm good. So I did for a millisecond feel bad about calling the Santas pudgy, but Mrs. Claus vouched for me that they were pudgy. A lot of cookies, right? A lot of milk and cookies.
Look, Santa is an amazing example of the phrase, a moment on the lips, a lifetime.
400 years on the hips.
Yeah, exactly. And I can only imagine with the steady diet of milk and cookies.
Candy canes.
And candy canes.
It's a famous line from A Year Without a Santa Claus where he's feeling sick because nobody believes in one of the Rankin Bass phenomenal Rankin Bass animated holiday specials. Mrs. Claus is in there. And suddenly she becomes a Jewish mother. She's like, eat, Santa, eat. She's an Italian Jewish wife. And
or any of my friends who are Mexican, their grandma, like they show in the movie Coco.
Yep.
Where he's like, I'm done eating. I had to ask my friend Robert. I was like, Robert, is it true? And he's like, oh my God. It's like when you think you're done, you're only done when your grandma says you're done.
When Nona says you're done, you're done. Otherwise, get that spoon ready. Yeah, in a lot of cultures, holidays is love. How you show affection is that you decorate the house, that you sing the songs, that you send cards. How often do we send mail to each other?
Never.
Never, right? Maybe a Christmas card, maybe a Valentine if we're on it.
You know what I did is I got cardstock. So if I taught a class somewhere, I ran into somebody, gave me their address. What do I want to do? Tells you who's trying to write it. Because I love getting stuff in the mail. And you think about it, society likes getting things in the mail because you know what we love most? Getting shit from Amazon. Think about that. I'm like, we're getting a box every...
I call that guy Santa, and he's never mad. When the truck comes, usually they just knock and run. So I'll open the door and holler, thank you. And they'll say, you're welcome. But usually I say, thank you, Santa. And they're so excited.
Who doesn't want to be Santa?
Exactly. And the same job, right? Coming at mysterious hours, dropping stuff off in bulk. Santa. I have started a campaign, if you would like to join me on this. I am not a fan of pranks. I think effort just to humiliate, shame, surprise, scare someone is maybe effort better spent elsewhere. And nobody's on board with this. Everybody thinks April Fool's Day is.
I don't like participating in it that much. We did try to prank our kids with a breakfast, an uncooked potato, popcorn seeds, and it's on our Instagram. And our kids, it backfired. It just shows how sweet they are. Like, I've never had this for breakfast. This is so...
It never occurred to them they were being lied to.
No, and like we had to be like, it was a joke. They looked at us like, why would you give us food like this? It's a joke. And it kind of put it for them like, why are we doing this? And I don't want to participate with doing like, you know, when you're a teenager and you're dating, I'd be like, at least I said I did this once. I had a girlfriend for my longest girlfriend at that time. I think I was like up to 16. And I just remember telling my mom that my girlfriend, Cassandra at the time, was pregnant. Keep in mind, we were doing nothing.
Yeah,
Yes to that.
Mom still find that funny.
We were driving on the freeway. She pulled over. She got mad. And then I told her I was kidding. I'd never seen her get more mad at that time in my life. I thought saying, I said it so quickly. I was just kidding, I'm just kidding, April Fool's. I said it hoping that it would like lower the lava about to explode out of the volcano.
There's a trust issue there.
It didn't help. So later on that day, I told my dad, and my dad goes, yeah, we've all tried that. Like, but I was like, oh man, I don't, because I'm worried of that karmic belief that I'm putting it out there. And so if you believe in manifest about putting things out in the universe or praying or whatever, I believe that if I jokingly say like, oh, this or that, I don't ever joke. I don't ever make jokes about that or cancer or any of these other things that people use to really make an elaborate prank.
So there is a random act of kindness day.
What day is that?
I don't know. There's two. There's an international one and a U.S. one. The world's foremost authority is a professor at UT Austin. And I've done this assignment with my students for years.
Does this person have hair?
I have to find out.
Because if they have hair, I need to have them in here. I need to talk to this person.
So I've done a random acts of kindness assignment with my students. It's really secretly a lecture about great customer service, right? Great customer service is not an accident. It's very intentional. You have all the pieces and parts in place to be kind, basically, but most people are doing it for a business purpose. It's the last assignment that my students do each semester before Thanksgiving, right? Because then they're done. They're only back for a week after Thanksgiving. They've already checked out. So we have a rule starting this semester where we have to have a guest speaker come in and speak to the students. Mm-hmm. So the Thursday before Thanksgiving break, the random acts of kindness assignment is due. They have to pitch it, execute it, reflect upon it. So the next week, who's my guest speaker?
Santa.
Correct. Tuesday, November 28th, Santa is coming to speak to the class about random acts of kindness.
Where is this Santa coming from?
He's Zooming. He lives in Oregon.
Oregon.
Yeah. When he decided, he's like, do I come to the conference at UNLV or do I Zoom in? And we did the research and they said, there's no Wi-Fi. So I said, okay, so either we pre-record you would come in. And he said, realistically, will I get any business off of this? I said, absolutely not. You'll be treated like a god for 3 days. But no, like everybody at Universal and Disney and these other major studios, they have Santas under contract already. They're not going to hire the Santa. So no.
Cut back real quick for me.
He said, no, you're not going to get any. And he's like, great. He goes, then we'll Zoom it. And I'm like, I appreciate that you approached this from a business point of view because this is your business.
You had previously mentioned in one of our conversations that Santas are not in this for the money.
Yeah, no, there's no Santa's getting rich. They're maybe breaking even, paying for their outfit, any travel expenses, any decorations. The ones in the mall are getting paid an hourly flat rate. They're getting paid nothing. The ones who are making more money are the ones who are doing commercial gigs, appearing in movies, and there's not a lot of them. Appearing at corporate holiday parties, perhaps. So it's a small, they're doing it because they love it. Almost all of them are retired. One gentleman I recently met is a young gentleman, and he probably in his 20s or 30s, and he's severely autistic. And his name is Autistic Santa Nate. And he says, and he provides experiences for autistic children. He understands a little bit better than other Santas might what they're scared of, what they're excited by, and how to interact with them in a safe and fun way.
Because when you're dealing with people who are neurodivergent, it's really interesting to I say interesting because how one thing is not consistent across the board.
True, yeah. The phrase is if you've met one child with Asperger's or autism, you've met one child with Asperger's and autism, right? Because they're so different.
Absolutely.
But they're absolutely not comfortable waiting in line at a mall who are in a loud, bright place, right? So the opportunity to have a meaningful conversation with Santa with your family over Zoom is a huge deal because they're not participating otherwise. Santa Nate is like, I got this one. And the Santas who know sign language or are bilingual, right? That's a community that they're serving that has been a gap for years.
You might have to talk a little louder.
You think?
No, but I think that's amazing that there's so many Santas. I mentioned earlier when you first got here, my great uncle was a Santa Claus in a mall. And he got there, if I remember correctly, because somebody approached him about being a Santa. Keep in mind, he was around, 6'1", natural white beard. He had his hairline he had the little island of hair, all white. He'd wear it slicked back.
It's called the widow's peak.
It wasn't that's pointy. It was wide. It was like a
the reverse islands.
like Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Like that sort of hairline, right? And he had a very jolly body shape, right? And his laugh was already like that iconic ho ho ho-ish. Like he just had a very jolliness to him. I remember him telling me the things that kids would ask for. Now, most of us would probably think, oh, they're asking for the latest and greatest toy, whatever that may be. As he was telling me some of these stories of what some of these kids asked.
They're asking for underpants and shoes.
Yeah. One of them, I remember these different kids, same day, and said, one of the kids asked for a toothbrush because he didn't have all of them. And he really wanted a toothbrush. And another kid asked for sheets because it was cold that night and they didn't have any.
That kills you right in there.
My great uncle was trying not to cry. I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about this. Now, being a parent, there's so many emotions I'm going through as you see, I'm literally tearing up. And not being able to provide that for my child. Mm-hmm. The second one is being unable to, no matter what you want to do, that you're still unable, right? And you're taking your child to Santa, and you now have to figure out how to grant this magic for that. My uncle said that he wanted to just go right off the chair and just purchase the sheets. He's like, I could buy sheets for all the kids in line. He's like, I'm retired. He was a retired guy, but he knew she couldn't break the protocol.
Yep. One of the things that I lecture on is the experience economy. We were hunters and gatherers and then farmers and then the Industrial Revolution, right? Right now, we are smack dab in the middle of what's called the experience economy, where people are very much paying for and demanding story, experience wrapped around their products, right? Why do I camp out at night outside an Apple store to to buy the latest iPhone when Amazon will deliver it, right? Like, I want to be part of that story.
Yeah.
We're on the cusp of what's called the transformational experience economy. And the transformational experience economy is what I do, buy a Patagonia jacket, right?
Yeah.
Because that money buys a jacket and goes to support their environmental initiatives, makes me a better person. So the transformation is
You feel better.
I feel better. Whether or not my money went to the good place or not, I am a different and changed person, right?
Yeah.
And that is very much what the Santas do. The Santas provide for the Santas a transformational experience. They're not cosplaying, right? The gentlemen who play Santa very much embody Santa. And, you know, at Imagineering, in LA County, it's illegal to use state or county funds to buy gifts to children. So,
Wait,
yeah. They,
really?
Yep.
So
that's not
the state cannot provide gifts for kids in foster care is what you're saying?
Yeah, foster care or group homes. And so they write their wishes on the little construction paper ornament and they hang them on a tree. And Imagineering gets a tree with a couple hundred wishes on it. And it is underpants, socks, a doll for my brother, right? Like they're asking for their siblings. And like, it just breaks your heart. And of course, you pull off all the ornaments and buy all of them and you feel good about yourself, right? But it's this big, right? You know that you only hit a tiny slice of those children.
Because of my great uncle dealt. My parents and I, we actually started doing that. So, to break it down, we would go to whatever department store and we would find a tree that had names and that would have, and my mom would get one, my dad would get one, and I would get one. And I remember doing this. I was still a teenager, so I'm probably maybe 17. I don't think I was like an adult teenager. I think I was on the cusp of it. And because I remember I used my money, I had a job, so I was almost 18, and it was picking things out. And then I just didn't stop at the pair of shoes they wanted, and like the shirt. I was like buying like several shirts. I was like, I could use this money and buy myself something stupid, or I could buy these things from, and as you're saying, it made you feel good. Our point wasn't to make us feel good. It's because we know that I had heard these stories from my great uncle. So I know there is a need.
Yeah. John Hench, legendary Imagineer, there was a ceremony and a trophy. He's a Disney legend. Started work on Bambi, right? So old school, worked through his 90s, drove himself to work every day through his 90s as an Imagineer. He took all the leftover ornaments, right? So, of which they'd be like 150, 200, right? So people would pick off their ornaments and do their onesies, twosies, and then whatever was left, sight unseen, he and his secretary would pull them off and buy and wrap all those gifts secretly. Nobody knew this. So that meant whatever home, you know, whatever group these ornaments came from, 100% of those children got what they asked for.
Yeah.
And then he passed away.
Who carried that on?
Right. His secretary raised her hand and said, who's going to do this? And everyone said, do what? Because nobody knew he was doing it. And so we sorted it, right? Other executives took over and took on that burden. But there's a gentleman who didn't do it for the credit, right? Only he and his secretary knew that he did it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he was a pretty cool guy. I remember I was hired to work in 1994 on the Aladdin virtual reality experience.
Okay.
And even then, he was very old. He was in his 80s, I think, at that time. So he called me into his office one day, and I'm flipping out, right? I'm this young kid. And he says, hey, explain this VR to me. He goes, technically, isn't Magic Kingdom already a virtual reality? And I'm like, it is. Yes, it is. There is no difference, just to what I'm working on in digital. And I kept looking at his secretary, one of the most esteemed executives, and she's like, yeah, no, he's fine, keep chatting. So I spent like an hour chatting with this legend about VR and virtual stories and how places and space make us feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Like, why does a haunted house scare us, right? And why does Main Street USA give us a sense of comfort?
Funny you say that, because Main Street USA is the same in Paris. Like,
Yeah,
it's
similar.
like similar. It's like, hey, that's on the right and that's on the left. When I went there, I felt back at home in Anaheim, California, even though I was nowhere near Anaheim, California.
Their entertainment is much more sophisticated. in the U.S.?
I did feel that their performance in front of the Magic Castle
Correct, yeah.
stage that comes up was just
Yeah.
amazing.
And they're not telling stories that are just a cavalcade of all your favorites. 20 seconds from this song, 20 seconds from that song. They're actually taking the time to weave story through whatever the presentation is.
Yeah, I felt there was, it was a more fluid story
Yep.
than like chapters in a book.
One of the things we really messed up, oh my God, look how cute. Look how curly you're getting it. One of the rules that all the Disney parks had, right, was no picnicking, right? If you do, you eat outside the parks, there's picnic benches, but you can't bring in your own food. Picnicking is a huge part of the French culture. Now, you're not going to tell them nope. So like, no, yep, sorry, our bad. Never mind. You bring your lunch. So even though you do a lot of research, sometimes you don't get it right. And people will tell you.
Did that policy ever change?
Immediately. Changed it immediately.
Yeah, I mean,
I was watching, I'm on campus now for like 9 hours, 2 days a week. All my classes are on 2 days. So then I work out of my home office the other days. And I was watching some judge show over my sandwich the other day. And there was a Santa who had smoked a cigarette on break. So not only had guests seen him behind them all in costume smoking, but he stunk up the outfit and they fired him on the spot. So he was suing for back pay. And not only did he not win, but whoever judge, fill in the blank, made him pay to dry clean the outfits. He's like, you understand when you take on this job that that is not a Burger King shirt, right? You're embodying a character and you have an obligation to represent that character respectfully. And so, yes, I agree with them firing you on the spot for smoking in costume. Yeah. And also, you stunk it up. Pay $40 to clean that. I'm like, good job, Judge Judy or whoever it was, right?
You know, it's funny you said of the responsibility and the costume and the suit, and I'm suddenly thinking of that episode of Sopranos, if you've ever seen it, where they're trying to figure out who is going to be the Santa, because Big Pussy is killed. So who's going to fill this role? And they have all these flashback moments of how this individual, this character, was such an integral part of the community of that time. And the guy they get is like totally doing a shit job.
Well, and you've seen, I think you've seen a trend in fashion models of very sexy older Santas. Gentlemen with beautifully manicured hair and beards, and they might be in a well-fitted red velvet outfit. So Santa has evolved. But everybody knows when they see that guy, he's clearly Santa. He's just sexy Italian Santa. But I can presume he's kind. It might be a little magic about him, not sure what. There's a lot of symbology wrapped around how the Santas present themselves, so we know right off the bat, yep, I got you.
You're like, yeah, I don't know if I trust this one. If there was a Santa that had a lager beer, I would trust them more. Like, more unkept beer. Like, I'm too busy making toys for the little kids. I can't have I don't have time.
I've been gardening for 400 years.
I'm too busy.
So the gentleman who I participated in the talk last week from a reindeer rancher to all the Santas on how they might integrate reindeer history facts into their story, how to actually work with reindeers if you get a live one, the care and feeding. Apparently deer can infect reindeer very easily. White-tailed deer have a transmittable disease, and so how you have an obligation to keep your reindeer healthy. It was so fascinating to learn. We got to see a cross-section of a reindeer's nasal cavity because how are their lungs not freezing? They have a very specially evolved nasal cavity, which increases the temperature of the air going into the nose about 70 degrees.
Wow.
And I clicked to watch the story because my friend Santa 1.0 was leading the hosting the speaker. But in that story in the title, how to integrate reindeer into your story, like little bits or lots of bits. And the presentation was fascinating because we talked about the history of reindeers as magical beings throughout the Nordic countries, and how long and why and what about them is magic, that they can apply and what else and how. And then just like reindeers are actually kind of magical, right? They can breathe in freezing cold air and not die.
That's pretty awesome.
He gave some good examples. Officially, if you're following the physiological rules of reindeers, all of Santa's reindeers are female because male reindeers have lost their antlers by December. Oh. Females lose theirs a little later. And so they said, so you can, if someone says, is it true that all Santa's reindeers are female? You can say, sure, right? Because, the male, or they can say, they're magic. right? They keep their antlers here right now. Like, which story you're going to choose?
I would just
stick
go
with
with
it.
magic.
Yeah. Magic seemed easier to me too. Names. Yeah.
It's not like, hey, here's the names. We have Ethel, we got Melissa, we have Jane, Prancer, Dancer. I mean, what are all the names? I forget.
Connor. You got Donner and Comet and Cupid and Blitzen. Vixen, she could be female.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But still like Comet. Like, that's very manly.
It sounds masculine.
Yeah.
But it could be. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I would you. It
Could be the tomboy.
the track I would take is magic.
Overall answer for so many of the answers. Well, it's Santa's magic.
Yeah. One of the things that my church did, which like I was probably 7th or 8th grade before I was like, well played, Sacred Heart Catholic Church. So they had a special children's Christmas Eve service at like 6 or 7, right? When you'd still be up. Everyone got to wear their pretty little outfits. And it was the regular old nativity story, right? But it was acted out. Little children were shepherds and sheeps and whatever. And then at the end of the story, Santa came and the gift was baby Jesus. He put baby Jesus in the manger because Santa was the best gift ever. And I'm like, well played, Father O'Donovan. You didn't dilute the story at all. Like, you kept the nativity story as is.
And now you added a new character.
You held it at an appropriate hour for children because they don't want to go to midnight mass or 7 a.m. mass on Christmas Day. And the one twist was baby Jesus is a gift. The whole Santa brings gift could be Santa. I'm like, that was an okay twist. It was also held in the school auditorium. It wasn't held in the church. I don't know if it was just because they expected a larger crowd or whatever, but in terms of like, how do you meld these stories to fit your family's beliefs or needs? I thought that was a pretty good example from Sacred Heart Church. Projects I'm working on right now here in Austin. There's not a lot for families to do that are holiday based. There's a Trail of Lights, which is lovely, but it's overcrowded.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard to navigate with children.
And then they have Peppermint Parkway at Circuit of America, which you drive through, which is a really great thing to do during the COVID.
Yeah.
Because there
all locked down.
There wasn't really anything to do, and you still want to do that experience. And we like, oh, this would be a fun one.
So I'm working with a group on a holiday light show, but in a building, a series of interactive installations that light up kind of a future-y themed holiday thing, but very specific for families. And I'm the one who's like, all right, like, this is an nondescript warehouse. We need signage for the whole walk ahead of us, like stuff in the grass. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's brilliant. I'm like, it is absolutely not brilliant. Anyone who's ever run an event understands these guests. So you all can work on the magic interactive light laser business. I'll work on the tickets, access, how to make people feel comfortable. I may have shined a laser on a aluminum tree the other day, which, by the way, spectacular.
Yeah.
It was obviously Mylar. They don't make the aluminum ones so much anymore. It does come right back at you. So you want to make sure that the laser's over here and never
Pointed at you.
because if you're in line with it this way, it'll come right back at you. So that's why we data tested it, and it was more magical than I even imagined. So the little aluminum branches really sparklified it up.
My friend, who's a photographer, he was shooting an event, like a concert or some sort of industry thing, right? And there's lasers going off, looking cool. But he's a photographer. There's this camera, and one of the lasers went through.
Oh, yep.
The lens hit right in the lens, and it fried the chip that retains the image.
The DLP chip, yeah.
Yeah, and it didn't work, and it was under warranty, so he was able to somehow, I think, get it figured out. But all I kept thinking about is, imagine the company's paying you to shoot this event, and your lasers.
Well, that's why there's eye-safe lasers. Your lasers should always be shot this way, so the trajectory is up only, never into my eye. Yeah. And there are companies that do really lovely, all the colors of the rainbow, eye-safe lasers now.
Well, I'm excited to know that you're going to be doing something for families. Is it going to be Santa themed?
Nope.
No.
We are going to have no-ones. I had a really good conversation. So many of my friends design holiday stuff, right? One of my friends, they own the Gaylord Ponds contract. They do holiday events for Gaylord Ponds nationwide. And this is like their 4th year. Like, what did you learn year 2? You wish you knew year 1. And he said, we were so obsessed with remaining secular. He says, it's not an unreasonable expectation for a guest that they see a few of these symbols. A Christmas tree, hear a carol. And so they said, don't be so obsessed with being too inclusive or exclusive that you don't have some of those symbols. So yeah, so it is family themed. We went with a little bit of a futuristic, what if aliens came to the planet? How may they celebrate a holiday event? So it's got some winter themes. We're hiding symbology in and around all the place. Classic things like a choo-choo train. So it's going to be fun. A lot of hidey holes, like things to peek into, or discoverable things for children.
It's interesting for me to think about the secular part of it because I was raised with no religious affiliation, right? I think it stopped with my grandma and it never continued to my mom, or I think it stopped also with my other grandma and grandpa, so it never continued with my dad. So I didn't grow up with that. I wasn't even into my 20s, so I realized that Easter was connected to Jesus. I was like, what? Like, as a kid, chocolate bunny, eggs.
Spring.
Well, not even spring, just chocolate bunny and eggs. It's like, where does this exist, you know? And for Santa Claus, I always thought it was like how awesome it is that people who believe in Jesus also got to celebrate Santa with me, because I didn't.
Yeah. Well, some families do and some families don't, but that's what I like about it. Pick and choose. Yeah. It's a choose your own adventure.
And now that I'm a parent with two children, these boys, I feel as a parent, Christmas is more exciting because now I think my wife and I are very conscientious or very aware, like our cognitive awareness is that we are now Santa. We are Santa.
Big boots.
We have to keep this fun magic, because not just for them, but also because those are such fun memories for us looking back on as kids. And I think if you don't have those fond memories, you at least know what those fond memories are supposed to look like because of media, because of cinema.
Yeah. Well, there's a lovely gentleman. Charles Phoenix is a cultural anthropologist out of LA. Yeah. And for many years as a teenager, he started collecting slides. And when did you take pictures? Like, film was very expensive, right? You had a flash bulb and a film, and you couldn't delete anything. And so we took pictures at holidays and vacations and important life events, weddings, graduation, and the like. So he has these massive collections of Christmas and holiday photos from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And he does a slideshow every year, a retro slideshow, and it's just lovely to see. By the way, Christmas trees weren't Christmas trees shaped for a very long time. Those were groomed to grow in that shape. So everyone has these like crazy bush-looking trees. And,
yeah.
And, at one point in history, everybody got a gun from Santa, little rifle, and the pajamas and, what traditions we still have. And I like that he's taken these where he can. He actually tracks down the Avila family and gets their story. So I appreciate that some folks collect this, right? And as I was talking about, as we're designing this, I said, would it be great to throw an aluminum Christmas tree in front of a laser? And only like 2 people in the room knew what an aluminum Christmas tree was. And I'm like, with the color wheel? And I'm like, that's the thing that, when you're older, or especially me, had older siblings, these things come across your radar that might not otherwise. And so for me to get a $8 one off of Amazon, stick in front of the laser, I was like, oh yeah, magic. I'm like, well, and where they came from was so much time and money was put into aluminum and metals for World War II.
Yeah.
And then the war was over and they didn't need that metal so much anymore. So the aluminum industry was scrambling. You got your Airstream trailers, right? Came out of that. And aluminum Christmas trees came out of a desperate need for aluminum factories to do something with their product. And I am grateful because I'm a big fan of the crazy aluminum tree with the color wheels.
There is a company that has like a minimalist style Christmas tree. And they actually, I follow up on Instagram, and it hangs from the ceiling and it floats. And it was the coolest thing. But the starting price is in the thousands, I believe. And they have one that's a half circle. So if you don't have the space, you can
just put it up against
and it looked equally as cool. And of course, they shot it in that that stall house, that one house that overlooks the valley of.
Oh yeah, with all the glass.
Yeah, they show it there. And it's like their their iconic marketing. It was so cool. And I love mid-century modern architecture and furniture design. To see that, I was, I want that, but I cannot.
Yeah, no,
I can't. And to decorate it,
I realized like that's such a fun thing.
Well, and my parents, giant family, not much money. Christmas Eve day, my dad would take, made printing ink. And so we had a truck to deliver this. So we'd take the van and we'd all go to the tree lot. And my father would hand the man $10 and say, I'm taking whatever tree I want. And the guy says, yes, sir, you are. It's noon on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Take whatever tree you want. And so we'd pick like a 15-footer, right? Our ceiling's about 15 feet. Yeah. So Dad would chop off the top. Mom would get that for all her lovely white pearls and lace bands and such. So the kids, Mom would go like right into the roof. Every construction paper, popcorn chain, toothpick, and the back was respected, right? We didn't just cut in the front. And it was just such a cacophony of crap, but that was Christmas.
Oh yeah, it's fun. I start decorating Christmas at Thanksgiving. I don't know why, but I do. And I found out that my friends in Sweden don't do it until they don't put their trip till the week of Christmas. And it comes down on New Year's Day.
Yeah, ours came down the Epiphany, January 6th.
Yeah.
So the 12 days of Christmas is actually Christmas Day to the Epiphany. When you get your partridge and your pear free, it's not the 12 days before Christmas. And so that is mythologically the day that the wise guys made it to Jesus. It took them 12 days to get to Jesus's crib. And so that was the border that my parents had. It only went up Christmas Eve for price reasons, right? Also, What better way to keep children busy and sleepy than decorating a tree till late at night on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And then it comes down on the Epiphany. But I don't know that my family still does that. That's what we did growing up. And at some point, you got to handle the glass ones. I mean, big deal when you're old enough to be trusted with the glass.
Yeah, I have some glass ones that I bought from Artist Garden in Newport Beach. And my kids go, what are these? I go, you don't touch those. They were expensive. Just looking at them, all may break them. But they love decorating the Christmas tree. It is so fun. We have a fake Christmas tree that has the lights built in because I found it to be annoying of putting on and taking off.
Yeah.
So I figure we have this tree. It looks great. It's big. And we get to do it on that day. Just take it out of storage and put it up.
Yeah, a lot of families have different traditions about one gift, littlest kid.
We got one little gift as my cousin and I when we were little, and he's usually from our grandpa or grandparents or our great grandparents. We got one small that was, and we didn't choose it. It was designated. Here's your one gift from them. And then the next day, Christmas, we'd open everything.
And that's what I make sure and ask my friends, what's your family tradition?
Yeah.
Canadians celebrated Thanksgiving last weekend.
Exactly.
Which is a fall festival. It's not a Thanksgiving. They don't have this whole Indians save their bacon story, right? Like we do. And so I had Canadian friends come to America the week of American Thanksgiving and asked me, you're from New England, make us traditional Thanksgiving dinner. I'm like, I'm telling you, what we eat now is not what the Native Americans ate. Yeah. So I say, what do you think Thanksgiving is? And what is it? What did your mom have on? And through the South, a little bit on the East Coast, around the South, corn dishes are super popular. New England, we don't eat corn dishes. We baked our sweet potatoes. A lot of people do them in the dish with, brown sugar and marshmallows. So I make sure and ask, what does this holiday mean to you tradition-wise? And how do they make that? I will help you relive whatever that is. Holidays are important to people, whatever the tradition is. And I want to make sure that maybe just one of the traditions, right? We're not going to go full your family or my family or whatever, but let's make sure that a little are sprinkled through what you expect and look forward to. Whether that's the TV shows you watch or the food you eat or the music you listen to, we can for sure get those in there.
What's one of your favorite traditions that you would like to, that you wish, because you enjoy it so much, you share with people, you know what? My family does this, and I love it, and I wish more people would do it because to find the same joy that I have.
I like all the build-up. I like the music. I like wrapping packages. I would spend a week wrapping beautiful packages with bows and decorations.
And who's wrapping my packages?
Yeah, I do. I use all kinds of upcycled stuff. The songs, the lights, right? It's all the stuff up to it that I really appreciate. And then then there's this day where whatever. Up to it is what I really appreciate. I just did an experiment in my new complex. I put little pumpkins out on my windowsill, and I'm like, if nobody steals them, I don't care if you eat it. It's circle of life, right? If a squirrel comes and gets it, more power to you. But if nobody messes with them, I might put Christmas lights out.
So I put Christmas lights on. I do it. I enjoy doing it. There's something about the physical act that is rewarding to me as much as the aesthetic.
Yeah, and also doing the switch is a big,
which is, Christmas vacation.
Well, and I had moved 9 times in 13 years. And so I was hesitating to nest right? Because I'm like, I don't want to buy stuff. I'll have to move. And last Christmas, I was home turning over my California apartment, which I have since sold. I'm now 100% Texan. In 2018, when I moved, I'm like, hopefully I won't move again. And I bought a tree and all the ornaments. In 2020, I moved again. I was home emptying my unit out to rent it. And I just put free to a good home. 7-foot Christmas tree, pre-lit, all the ornaments. I kept 2 ornaments. I had a Captain America and a Wonder Woman ornament that I kept. And the rest went. And one of my friends, he's in Tokyo for a couple of years on assignment. And his wife and 2 boys who are high school, they just decided not to do Christmas at all because Dad wasn't home. And I'm like, that's a terrible idea. And she goes, you know what? Bring me that tree. And so I put it in its carry bag and I drove to her house and plopped it on the doorstep and, hey, instant Christmas. But I'm like, I was so arrogant. I decided to nest. I thought I wouldn't move again. And I did move again. But the Christmas tree ended up in a nice home.
Do you have a tree now? Are you going to do a real tree or a fake tree?
I don't think I'll go so big as a tree, baby steps. But I've fallen in love with those solar-powered lights that you stick in that look like an exploding spider.
Yeah.
Because they're solar-powered. I can stick them into the dirt. They don't need electricity. And there's a little gravel. The whole front of my unit is gravel. So the gardeners don't ever muck with that. So I think I'll just stick some. It's in the back of the unit. No one from the street sees it. But 100% of the people going to the laundry room see it.
There you go.
Little treat for the laundry folks.
I love this. This is fun. I actually got to learn a lot about Santa stuff.
And I will introduce you to Professor Kindness at UT.
I would love to actually get to know more people at UT because I had a client back in California who was a professor at Chapman University. His name's Jeff. And Jeff was on Through the Wormhole twice with Morgan Freeman. He's a quantum physicist. And hearing him talk with his friends who worked at CERN, part of the God particle, right?
Yeah.
Being around them, it was fascinating. Of course, most of the conversation ended up with me going, oh, it's like this one episode of Star Trek, or it's like this one science fiction movie. And the joke was, do we just need to reference sci-fi to get grants for our projects?
Yes.
I said, yeah, absolutely.
Storytelling. You need to tell stories about your stuff to get the grants.
Yeah.
I saw a great presentation. I lectured up at Texas A&M the other day, and I had another speaker as well. And she is NASA's exoplanet ambassador. And exoplanets are all the planets not in our solar system.
Yeah.
So I learned that. And Vulcan was a planet. You know, Mr. Spock was from an actual planet until 1915, when Einstein's theory of relativity proved it wasn't. They were presuming it was a planet based upon secondary clues, shadows. Mercury wobbled a particular way. And she's like, are any of you mad now that Vulcan's gone? Or no, she goes, how many of you are mad about Pluto? I'm like, oh, I am legit mad about what you did to Pluto. She's like, yeah, middle schoolers never even heard of Pluto. They're over it. You need to get over it. I'm like, never get over.
I will never forget.
Disrespect of Pluto. But telling that story is how I remembered all that information. One of the gentlemen I super adore at UT Austin right now, his name is Moribajah, Moribajah. He is one of the world's foremost authorities on space junk, getting rid of space junk as garbage. And for the first time in history last week, somebody was fined for their space junk crashing or impacting something. And he says,
awesome.
He's like, watershed mark in what we care about, because there's so much garbage up there.
Yeah.
And he tells stories, and he connects as, I care about this planet is why I care about the stuff up there.
Yeah.
So he might be a good, he had a lot of hair.
Good. A lot of hair.
I'll make sure I can connect him to you.
I appreciate it. MK, thank you so much for giving your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for making me adorable.
Awesome. Adios.
Be soon.